Hello. In this presentation, I'm going to be going over the EMS response over the 2021 Astroworld Festival disaster with a focus on incident command, triage, communication, and operational effectiveness. Understanding the ups and downs in a response like this one is critical for improving future EMS performance in high-risk and large-scale events such as this one. So, a little overview on the event. On November 5th, 2021, the Astroworld Festival in Houston, Texas became the site of a large-scale mass casualty incident, or an MCI, resulting in 10 fatalities and hundreds of injuries. While the event was planned as a controlled mass gathering at first, it rapidly turned into a dangerous crowd surge problem. Due to this, the people in the crowd experienced compressive asphyxia, traumatic injuries, and cardiac arrest. So the festival hosted approximately 50,000 people at Energy Park. During the headline performance by Travis Scott, a rapid forward movement of the crowd created extreme density. I guess a lot of people call this crowd crush. So it's just like a wave of people just domino affecting, falling onto each other, crushing each other, and you're not really able to control anything you do. So individuals lose the ability to control their movement, and chest expansion becomes restricted, leading to compressive asphyxia. So from a medical standpoint, this is dangerous because patients may 1 second appear conscious and fine initially, but it can quickly turn into they can turn hypoxic and possibly go into cardiac arrest. As individuals began collapsing, they were often unable to immediately be removed due to the surrounding crowd pressure. So a key issue in this phase was the delayed recognition of the event's severity. Although multiple patients were unresponsive, the event continued. The show kept going on, indicating that the situation was not immediately identified as a MCI, requiring escalation of EMS response. So, medical mechanisms. Primary one was, like I said before, asphyxia due to the compression of people. This happens when external pressure on the chest prevents adequate lung and chest expansion, which leads to a decreased oxygen intake. Many patients were trapped within the crowd and were unable to escape or receive immediate assistance, which then worsened their condition over time. This is actually a real picture from the event. So they had a bunch of these golf cart type ambulances. I think this is a golf cart one. Yeah, it looks like it. But yeah, the lights were going off in the crowd, and it was so weird because the show just kept going on. Another picture from the festival. EMS response. So medical coverage for the event was primarily provided by contracted local private EMS services, and they also had an additional response from the Houston Fire Department. Initial EMS operations followed a routine event medicine model where individual patients are assessed and treated as isolated cases. So I'm assuming that means the typical medical coverage that you see at, any other real big festival. So like they have the tents and everything like that. That's what I imagine it as. However, as the number of patients increased, this approach became ineffective. Instead of transitioning to an MCI framework, responders continued operating in a reactive, patient-by-patient manner, if that makes sense. This delayed the shift to coordinated triage and resource allocation. Another major limitation was physical access. EMS personnel were unable to efficiently reach patients due to how dense the crowd was. In many cases, responders had to rely on bystanders to move patients or like to create space, obviously. So there's a few videos that you can look up on YouTube where the people in the crowd, they're like help carry like the unconscious bodies to the open areas where the medical people can start working on them. This significantly delayed interventions such as airway management, CPR for the people in cardiac arrest, and the rapid transport that some of the patients needed. Obviously, ambulance movement was also affected without clear entry and egress routes. Transporting critical patients became slow and very unorganized, which is obviously dangerous in times of people having emergencies. And this one, another real picture from the festival. Obviously, everybody, I think this is after everybody kind of started to leave, as it's a lot more open now. Kind of what I talked about before. This is another picture from the area. As you can see, it just looks like a bunch of like ants. It's just so packed together. So, incident command issues, as long as leadership issues. One of the most significant failures in this incident was the lack of a clearly defined and functioning incident command system, or ICS, particularly within the medical branch. A properly managed MCI or mass casualty incident, a medical branch director should be established very early to oversee operations like triage, treatment, and transport. At Astroworld, there was no clear evidence that a unified structure was established in the early stages. Multiple agencies, including private EMS, the fire department, and event staff, were operating at the same time without a clear coordination. So this created confusion regarding decision-making authority and delayed critical actions, such as declaring the event as an MCI. So declaring an MCI early allows for rapid notification or notifying additional resources, structured triage systems, and also notifying the hospitals to make sure they're ready to take in all the patients that's coming their way. Without all of this declaring early in the event, the response remained inefficient during the most critical period. I think that's the Houston fire chief speaking to the press. Either the fire chief or the police chief. Triage problems. Triage during the event was very inconsistent and unorganized and ineffective due to both environmental and organizational challenges. In a standard MCI systems like the START method, which stands for simple triage and rapid treatment, it's used to quickly categorize patients based on their respiratory status, their perfusion, and their mental status. Responders were unable to perform systematic triage because they could not gain access to all of the patients. As a result, patient prioritization was all over the place, and critical patients were not identified in a fast and appropriate manner. Additionally, the number of available medical personnel and equipment was insufficient for the volume of patients. Reports indicated a lack of adequate resuscitation equipment and staffing to manage multiple simultaneous cardiac arrests. The combination of delayed access, insufficient resources, and lack of structured triage significantly impacted the quality and timeliness of patient care. Communication failures. So, effective communication is a core component of ICS. and its failure can compromise an EMS response. During the Asheville incident, communication issues were reported between different responding entities, so like the private EMS, fire, and event organizers. Radio communications were reported very inconsistent, and there was no clear centralized flow of information. This resulted in delays in recognizing the scale of the incident, and it hindered the coordination of resources. The cause of this was that the event lacked adequate planning for emergency access routes. So before the event even started, the poor planning had already started. So it's like they weren't very prepared for a situation like this in the first place. In large gatherings, designated pathways must be maintained to allow EMS personnel and vehicles to move freely. At Astroworld, these pathways were either insufficient or not effectively maintained, preventing rapid response and the removal of patients. So obviously these failures highlight the importance of pre-event planning and integration between medical teams and event operations. So I've never worked an event like this, but I can imagine like days or weeks leading up to the event. I guess event organizers or planners, I'd imagine they get with the local EMS agencies or fire departments and kind of build a plan in case stuff like this happens. If they did do this, it wasn't very efficient. So what went well? Despite everything, despite the numerous challenges, there were some aspects of the response that were effective. Bystanders and event staff initiated CPR prior to EMS arrival. Early bystander intervention like this is known to improve outcomes in cardiac arrest, so the sooner you start interventions on cardiac arrest, the likelier the patient is to survive. Once the severity of the situation became more apparent, additional EMS resources were requested and deployed. So like the Houston Fire Department and other EMS agencies ultimately responded with increased personnel and transport capability. Also, hospitals in the area were able to receive and treat the surge of patients without becoming completely overwhelmed, indicating some level of system resilience in the receiving facilities. The Ashworld incident demonstrates the critical importance of proactive planning and early recognition of an MCI in EMS operations. Large-scale events must include detailed medical planning that's appropriate for worst-case scenarios, including crowd surge and other mass casualty conditions. So a clearly defined ICS structure, including a medical branch director, is necessary to coordinate triage, treatment, and transport effectively. Without clear leadership, response efforts become fragmented. So in this picture, it can be either a friend or a loved one of the victims that lost her life at the event. To conclude, the Ashworld Festival crowd surge illustrates how quickly a planned event can escalate into a mass casualty incident. Failures in communication, command, triage, and planning contributed to delays in care and increased patient morbidity and mortality. For EMS providers, this event underscores the importance of strong leadership, situational awareness, and adherence to ICS principles. By applying the lessons learned from this incident, EMS systems can improve their ability to respond effectively in future large-scale emergencies.